welcome to KnittaCass Create. Here, grab your favorite cup and you can come join me to find out what I've been up to, what's on my needles, some inspiration, who I like to watch, what I like to read, so we can get to know each other better. This is my favorite coffee cup, so we can do it coffee cup. A few years ago I was Rosie the Riveter for Halloween, and now that seems to be a theme of mine. So I've got some water in here. And I guess we'll start with a little bit about me. So I am a mom of 4. I have 1 girl, 3 boys. I am a mostly stay-at-home mom. I am a nurse who works at 2 different nursing homes at the moment. And I am actually back in nursing school to get my RN. So to say things are busy is an understatement. My knitting journey. So I started knitting, let's see, my baby is not a baby anymore. He is 6. And I think I started knitting when he was an infant. I think around the time of his first Christmas. I had been watching my mother-in-law knit, and I had been really curious and interested in what she was doing, and I loved when she would finish her hats or mittens or a sweater and give them to the kiddos, and I thought that that was something I really wanted to try. So I got one of those, like, do-it-yourself kits. I would have showed you, but it's very well used and falling apart. But it had a book, and it had a CD-ROM, and it had some needles and a stitch counter, some cable needles. I'm trying to think if it had anything else. And it showed you how to cast on, how to bind off, how to do it continental, how to do it, what is the other one? I don't even remember. English versus continental. So I am a thrower, which is English, and continental is more of like a picker. So it showed you how to do that. It showed you how to finish. It gave you a couple of easy, like, washcloth, an easy sweater, an easy scarf, lots of hats. So I started as a hat knitter, and I'll try to see if I can throw in some pictures because my kids are awesome. My first few hats, if I dropped a stitch, I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't know how to pick it up, and I usually wouldn't notice until I was like many rows further. So their first hats had a lot of runs in them and a lot of holes that I tried to hand sew after. They were a nightmare, but they wore them enough to take a picture, and I think they probably wore them at the bus stop and then stashed them in their backpack. But you know what? They made their mom feel good, so that's okay. And then I started thinking that I wanted to venture out and try other things. So I did some baby sweaters. I think I did 2 of those. I did a baby pantaloon thing. I'll try to show some of the recipes, some of the pictures of the finished products. Not really sure where I went after that, but in the last year or so I started knitting socks. 2 years ago I started knitting socks, and my first sock was terrible. Actually, let me go get that because it's pretty funny. Okay, I'm back. So, my first sock. So I knew nothing about knitting a sock, but I desperately wanted to knit a sock. And I found this really nice pattern. I don't even remember what it was. It's got some good texture here. I've got this beautiful self-striping yarn with a variety of colors, and I spent an entire summer, I kid you not, an entire summer, knitting 1 sock. And it was knit with some pretty thin yarn, which I assumed was sock yarn, and maybe it is. I think, knowing what I know now, because I didn't know a whole lot then about different types of yarn, I think it's 100% wool, and I think that's my problem, because there's a little stretch on the cuff here because of the way it is with the knit one, purl one, but there's no real give anywhere else, especially in the heel. And so this sock is stiff, it's heavy, it feels like an old crunchy grandpa sock, and it doesn't fit on my foot. So needless to say, I did not knit a second one. and I keep this to remind me how far I've come. But I have now successfully been knitting socks, and I seem to really like socks. I kind of go in a phase, so I'm in a sock phase right now. I guess I'll show those in a minute, but you learn a lot as you knit. So I learn a lot by watching podcasts, and I learn a lot by asking lots of questions and going to our local knit groups. And so I've learned a lot about yarn. And so if I had known what this was made of, I probably would have used a different needle size. I also would have researched how big my foot is, because I have kind of a short foot, but it's chunky, and definitely would have done this a little bit differently. In fact, you can see, like, I don't know what I did there, but there's yarn poking out. It looks like I tied a piece of yarn there. I would never do that now. So it's just kind of fun to go back. So if you've been knitting for a while, maybe you should go back and look at some of your old projects, because it's really interesting to see how far you have come and like what used to be your standard of knitting versus what your standard of knitting is now. So we'll start with what's on my needles now. So I just did a whole bunch of finishing up projects for Christmas, and I'll show that in a minute. And so I have a lingering whip here, which kind of ties back to the don't know much about yarn and still learning. Let me see which way it goes here. Okay, so this is, ooh, I dropped a stitch. Let me fix that real quick. Find My Way sweater. It's a bottom-up sweater. It's designed by Tristan of Dragon Horned Yarn. It's got some gorgeous cabling. I think this is like the horseshoe cable, I think they call it. And there's some twisted cable here. And then this is just one row of purl, one row of knit. So it's got a really nice pattern. It's very chunky. It's going to be a very cozy sweater, and if you can tell, I definitely made some mistakes in it. And I don't think I've ever knit anything without making a mistake, and I'm kind of a lazy knitter, so I don't always like to go back. Sometimes I just say it makes it mine. So, I started this sweater, I'll have to double check my Ravelry page, but I'm pretty sure I started it in the end of summer. That wasn't that long ago. The beginning of summer? Maybe last fall. It's been a whip for a long time. So at first, I had never done cable, so this was my first cable sweater, so it was difficult to figure out how to do the cable. It's super easy, but as someone who was nervous about it, I just couldn't keep track of it. And then as I was doing it, it started to make sense, and I could start to tell, okay, this is when I need to do this again, this is when I need to do this again. I could kind of anticipate the pattern, but at first I was just too nervous, and I was thinking so hard that it was difficult to pick this project up. So it's a gorgeous sweater. I'll try to throw a picture in somewhere up here so you can see it all together. It's absolutely gorgeous. She has a lot of good designs. She just designed, well, she has quite a bit of sweaters out actually, and she is into a lot of like gothic, Sabrina, witchcrafty, things like that. And she made a salmon sweater, and it is gorgeous. So that's going to be my next sweater. So I really need to finish this sweater. So what happened was, I was knitting it, I was nervous about the cable, and then I figured out the cable, and I was going along, and every knitter's nightmare, I ran out of yarn. Yeah. So this yarn is cheap acrylic yarn that I bought at Walmart, and it's called Aspen Tweed, and I just love the tweediness in it. Like, it just looks like one of those comfy, oversized homemade sweaters. That's what I wanted. So I bought quite a few balls of it and ran out. Didn't know how much it would take. This is only the second sweater I've knit. So I didn't know what weight this was of yarn. So I tried finding it in Walmart where I bought it. Didn't have it. I went to Michael's. Didn't have it. Went to Joann's. Didn't have it. I went on Amazon. I thought I found it. I was so excited. I did. It's the right color. It's Line Brand, Hometown. aspen tweed. But the problem is, let's see if I can show you, it's chunky. Way too big. So if I started knitting this sweater from where I left off with the chunky, you would be able to see the difference. Glaringly obvious. Like, I'd be across the room and someone would be like, what's wrong with her sweater? So I was a little disappointed, so I put these aside. So I have some of these. I'm going to make something fun with them. I haven't decided yet. So that's not going to work. So I looked on a bunch of sites, KnitPicks and Daramores and whatever, what have you. And I found this yarn, and not having it near the sweater, it looked like it could pass. Until it came in, and it's more of what I like to call eggnog color. I'm not sure if it's showing true to color. And it's thin. It's like a little heavier than sock yarn, so it's probably sport weight. And I'm pretty sure this is DK, so not gonna work. And the eggnoggy cream to it would totally stick out across the room as well. So I had to wait again. So eventually I found this. It's Loops and Threads yarn, and it is called Aran tweed, but it looks almost identical. It is a little bit different, but it's the same weight as this sweater, so it's going to kind of blend. I mean, maybe up close you'll see it, but in general it's going to be good. So I got to finish this sweater so that I can start either the Love Note or Spellman, and I will put in pictures of those sweaters. So here's a Langering whip. It's going to be finished soon, so I keep telling myself, New Year, going to finish this. And pay attention to your yarn gauge, and when you knit a sweater, try to ask someone who's knit a sweater before, you know, in this sweater, if I'm knitting it this size, like how many grams of yarn or how many skeins of yarn do I need? Because you don't want to run out of yarn and then not be able to find it again. It took me months to find the yarn. So this one I'm so excited about. So it's a free pattern. Let's see if I can find the designer's name on here. Oh poop, I can't. Okay, so I will give the designer credit. I will put her like down on the bottom here. So this is a free sweater on Ravelry, and I have been watching The Mandalorian, which is like a post-Star Wars saga with kind of the same culture, and there's a guy who is named The Mandalorian, and he's essentially working like as a bounty hunter, and there is like a little tiny Yoda. He's not Baby Yoda, but that's what everybody calls him. And so this is a Baby Yoda sweater. So cute. And I'll try to put a color picture in too so you can see it, and I'll tell you who it's by. So it's got the sweater, it's got seed stitch for the ribbing and seed stitch for the sleeve ribbing. It's got a little collar here, and then you knit the hood in the green color, like that sage green that Yoda is, and it's got little ears, and they say that this can fit like a newborn, because you would just roll up the sleeves and roll up the sweater, I guess, since it's supposed to look baggy anyways. So I have a new niece who is due in April. She's actually due on my birthday, which is so exciting. So she's due on my birthday, and her parents love The Mandalorian. Her dad is a wicked Star Wars fanatic. So I am making this for their baby shower, and I don't know if I can wait. I might give it to them early. I'm so excited. So I got this yarn from KnitPicks, and it's kind of a tweedy, like it looks like a braid when you see the yarn by itself. See how it looks kind of braided? And it's got this, I don't know what you would call it, pink, but more of like a mauve pink, and then the white in it. So pretty. So this is what I'm making the sweater out of, and it's knit flat initially. I don't really understand the construction, but with most patterns and me, I don't understand the construction until I'm in the middle of doing it, and then it makes sense. You'll see it grow as it goes on. So here's one chunk of it, and then it says to make the sleeves. So I have one sleeve here, and whoops, this sleeve's almost done here, and then it's going to have me join the sleeves and then I can make the collar, and that part should be done, and then I gotta order some green for the hood. But this yarn, I wanted to say, is called Mittens. The colorway is called Mittens. And my dad, when I was first pregnant, wanted to call my stomach Mittens. Like, he thinks it's a cute baby name. So I just think it's funny that this is one of their later grandkids, but the colorway for the first sweater is going to be Mittens. I just think that's so sweet. This one's going to take a while, and has been taking a while. I just don't want to slip my needles. So this is my Cozy Memories blanket made out of sock yarn. Oops. So basically, I don't know what I just dropped. Square by square, so it's a mitered square, a knit mitered square, and you just keep adding squares to it. And Kay of the Crazy Sock Lady, who I love to watch, did one where she started her sock blankets going in different directions. So she had like 4 quadrants, and the diagonal line was going this way, this way, this way, and this way. I thought that was cute, so I have started that in the center here. I haven't done too much at the bottom, but hopefully that's what it'll look like when it's finished. So it'll be a big project. I'm in the middle of the square now with one of my Dragon Horn yarn colorways from a Gamekeeper Christmas, that's what it is. And I don't remember that colorway. But. So this project is just going to keep growing and growing. And the cool thing is, a lot of the squares are from special memories, like a sock swap, my first sock swap that I did, or this one's for the first pair of socks I made for my little boy. This is my first Game of Thrones inspired colorway. Let's see. My favorite square is this one, and I've done it a couple of times in here. So this is my first fancy yarn that I bought, and it's called Serial Mermaid by Dragon Horde Yarn. Love it. That's what I made my very first sweater out of. So, it's kind of neat to have this ongoing project, but it has a little bit of every project in it, so it's going to be so memorable and so cozy, and when I work on it, it's super warm already. So that's all that's on my needles. So I have 3 works in progress right now. And then I want to show you some of my recently finished objects that I have here. Here's one that I just finished. It has not been, the ends have not been wound in yet. So this is Heel Toe Do-Si-Do pattern by Kay of the Crazy Sock Lady. So it's self-striping yarn, and it makes this really neat chevron pattern. It's really gorgeous. And then this I did in Afterthought heel, so that it wouldn't interrupt with my striping. And I did it in a different colorway that was from a sock set from Dragon Horde Yarn. It was a Trailani sock set, so that's pretty cool. So I've got like this light lavender color here. And the tutorial I used, because everybody refers everyone to the same tutorial, it's called Curvy Werby Afterthought Heel Tutorial. And it's not spelled curvy wormy like ladies have curves. It's spelled Kirby like, well, there used to be a toy named Kirby. K-I-R-B-Y, and then Werby, W-I-R-B-Y, I believe. I'll put a link in the bottom. So it's really easy. She shows you step by step, and you can kind of pause it because it's on YouTube, and it's just super awesome. She shows you how to know where to put your heel, but I've been knitting for me quite a lot, so I know how many rows before my heel usually starts. And if you can do a rounded toe, you can totally do this heel. This colorway is from Desert Vista Dyeworks, and I believe it's called Caribbean, and it's a 6 or 7 stripe. So there's that one. Oh, these ones, these are funny. So I have really short, fat feet, and I've been knitting socks, and when I knit them, they were always a little too big or a little too long, and so I don't know exactly what I did, but I skipped some rows because I thought they're always too long, and I wanted to make wicked shorties, which is fine. Except I've been machine washing them, so they're starting to felt a little on the bottom here, and they just look like, I don't know, elf slippers? My husband picks on me. They do actually fit me, believe it or not, but they're pretty ugly looking by themselves. And this is in the Red Woman colorway by Bumblebee Acres. And then I'm wearing my favorite pair of socks. It's called Wild Heart or Wild at Heart. It's by Kay of the Crazy Sock Lady. And I just absolutely love the design. I actually consider them my lucky socks, and I wear them when I have a big exam at school. So that's one thing. Let's see. This was my first official self-striping yarn sock, and I'll show you a little sneak peek of the yarn. So I saw this little like tweedy part, and I thought, oh, that's gonna look so cute, and it's got manly colors. I can't wait to knit it up. I'm so excited. I'm gonna make them for my 11-year-old. He's gonna love them, yada yada. Needless to say, as the socks grew, they're like fugly. Like, they're definitely not the cutest things I've seen. But I worked really hard on them, so he said he'll wear them. But, I mean, they're not that great. And the stripes, they don't match up, so the socks are actually not even. I tried my best to play yarn chicken and even them out, but see, this blue over here is like ginormous. And I started in the same spot at the top of the sock. So it kind of seems random. I'm a little disappointed about that, but he'll wear them because he's a good sport, and I just know next time to maybe not buy self-striping yarn at a craft store and to get it from like an indie dyer or somebody who has a little more reputation, or maybe Fleecy by Knit Pick. I've been drooling over some of their yarn. And this is a gift that I made for my daughter. And I can't remember the name of them, but it was in a knit magazine. And it's supposed to look like waves with this little bump here. Oops, I got some fuzz on it. So she loves fingerless mitts. So that's what I made her. And she has a matching pair of socks that I made, her first pair of socks that I made for her, and I think it was the Rhinebeck Roomies pattern. Another gift knit that I have not weaved the ends in. So this is for my 14-year-old son, who is too cool to wear a hat by mom, too cool to wear a sweater by mom, refuses to wear knit socks, but is constantly cold when he goes out hunting and wanted something, an extra layer to put under his hunting gloves. So these are called the Bay Mitts. They've got a really neat texture, which could be feminine or masculine, which is pretty awesome. And they were really fun to knit. It never got boring. And it was also slightly predictable. Really comfortable. Really comfortable. Just trying to see if you can see the texture there. I have a little bit of a sun glare. And I like how they kind of angle. I think that's cute. Okay, so there's those. I'll show you some of my bags that I've been using. So this is from Nicole Stitch's podcast. And this is the bag that came in a Treylani sock kit. So I had a skein or a hank of Treylani colorway, and then a hank of this light purple. And it came in here, and it had, oh sugar, I didn't bring the stitch marker, but it has a Ouija board stitch marker from Sucra Miniatures. So that was really fun. So there's that one. And then there's this one, which is my first knitting bag that I bought. It's also from Nicole Stitch's podcast. It's like some pinup Halloween girls, which is super fun. And this is my most recent purchase from Nicole Stitch's podcast. I got this for Christmas. It's a large bag. It's got a drawstring closure. It's got a little handle. And then the inside is good old-fashioned plaid. And it fits quite a lot in it, so that's been pretty fun. This is the Treylani colorway. I haven't quite decided what I want to do with it. I was knitting some socks and I didn't like the way it looked, but it was a patternless sock, so maybe I'll find something soon that I like. And this is the Caribbean self-striping yarn. And then this is a tote bag that my friend Mindy made me. I picked out the pattern, or the fabric, and she knit it for me, or sewed it for me, oh my goodness. And I used it as a purse for the longest time, and now it has become one of my favorite knitting bags. And then I've got this one, which I got from my sister-in-law Ashley, who used to knit like crazy. It's got some holes here where you can pull the yarn through. You can put this on here. It's got a little zipper in the front. Super neat. And I have like 100 totes from everywhere, like anything. And there's a new craft shop that opened in Montpelier in October. And so this is Notion Fabric and Craft, which is the shop. And they gave me a tote bag. It's very well loved. It's very dirty. But I will just grab a tote bag and throw yarn and throw a project in there and get going. I actually don't really have a good system for keeping, like, knowing what's what or keeping my notions, so they kind of end up everywhere. I really enjoy these, I don't know what you want to call them. Somebody called them like a light bulb stitch marker. And Kay of the Crazy Sock Lady would always, so on her socks, she always measures rows of, I think it's 10. And so every 10 rows, she'll put one of these markers on, every 10 rows. And then when you make the second sock, because if you've ever knit a sock before, you know that even if you're following a pattern, there's always some sort of variation that happens. And so you can guarantee that your next sock is going to be the same. Because you can look and say, okay, yeah, that's 20 rows, that's 30 rows, or I did 50 rows before I did my heel. And it takes all the guesswork out of it. So that's what I like to use those for. And then I have a bunch of these ones that can be used for just about anything. But I started acquiring some specialty stitch markers. And I have to say, my favorite stitch marker maker is the Corner of Craft, Hannah of the Corner of Craft. She makes beaded stitch markers, and they are awesome. So I'm trying to pull some out so I can show you what I've got. So this was my first one from her, and it was in a pumpkin spice everything kit. So that is supposed to be a pumpkin spice latte. And then I have a Cadbury cream egg that I think I got around Easter time. A monarch butterfly, which are my favorites. This I think is just a regular coffee cup. And a love letter. I also had a ghost, a shark, a pumpkin, and something else. But I have a really bad habit of knitting in my comfy recliner chair. And it has like this black hole. Like things fall in it and they never come back out. So I think that's where they are. And then I got this one in a contest or giveaway that I won from Kay the Crazy Sock Lady, and I'll put the name of the maker who made this. So I like to think it's a peppermint hot cocoa, which is my favorite. Then this one is from, I think this one is from Simply Serving. It's a little tiny pumpkin. And I had a monster book too, but I don't know where it is. And then there's the chocolate frog from Harry Potter. So that's pretty fun. A gingerbread man. I think these are made out of polymer clay. And then this is, I don't know, some sort of festive drink with a candy cane and a gingerbread on top, some whipped cream. It's super cute. And then last year I got some discount stitch markers from Knitty by Nature, and they were Christmas themed, and I put them in my Christmas Advent this year. So if you didn't follow my Vlogmas, I didn't have the cash flow to buy a real Advent from anybody. So I took some yarn that I had, plus a 12 mini series of Christmas, of a Gamekeeper's Christmas. And I had my husband put them in envelopes that I had numbered. And some of them randomly would have a stitch marker in them. And I opened them every day, and it was so fun. And it was really cool that he helped me, because then I didn't know what I was getting. I think that's it for stitch markers. I have been following quite a lot of people, and I wanted to give them a little bit of a shout out. So here's some of the people I've been following that have really got me thinking about maybe doing a podcast for knitting, because knitting is now my entire life. So I've been watching Hannah from the Corner of Craft. I've been watching Girls in the Yarn Cafe, which is a mother-daughter team, and they each have their own yarn dyeing company. And they each also make patterns, design patterns. So one is Tristan, and I don't know her last name. And then her mom is Christy of Yarn Cafe Creations. And then Tristan's of Dragon Horde Yarn. They both have gorgeous colorways, amazing patterns, and their podcast is pretty awesome. But their yarn has taken over, and they've been doing a lot of tours and a lot of vendor events, and haven't podcasted in a little bit. So I'm a little sad, but it's good because they're really successful, and that's why they don't have time. I've been watching Caroline of Dundernit, wicked funny, swearing friendly. I've been watching Nicole Stitch's podcast. She's the one that I've got a lot of knitting bags from. Love and Stitches, her name is Nitty Natty, well, her YouTube name. I've learned a lot of techniques from her as well. And of course, Kay of the Crazy Sock Lady. So those are like my top favorites that I watch all the time, and I've learned so much from all of them, and they're truly my idols. I've started watching Hilo and Stitch. Her Instagram name is Media Piranha. I have no idea if I'm saying that right, but she has been fabulous. She taught me a lot about sweater knitting in the beginning of fall, so I'll try to insert a picture. I made this really cute sweater for a beer cozy. It's really adorable. Volenvine, she's really awesome, and she doesn't just knit, she also dyes yarn, and she makes a lot of sewing creations, and she's just really fun to watch and to see what kind of crafts she's been getting into. And I watched a couple episodes of Bakery Bears. I'm pretty intrigued. I don't know a lot about them. Same with Knit Girls. They seem to know like a bunch about knitting and seem to be really involved in the knitting community, but I don't always catch up with them, so I don't always know what's going on with them. Bumblebee Acres, they're not a podcast, but they're a yarn company. Dragon Horn Yarn, Yarn Cafe Creations, those are my top 3 yarn dyers right now. Stitch Markers, Corner of Craft, Simply Serving. I've been keeping an eye on Tiny Sugar, which makes a lot of like food-like creations for stitch markers, but I haven't purchased any yet. And Super Struker Minis, which I have 1 or 2 from, and I think they're pretty great. I think that's it. I'm probably forgetting people, but I'm trying to show you like the top idols. But I'm always looking for more knitting podcasts to watch. I love seeing what other people are creating, or learning their techniques, or seeing what patterns they're liking, and it just opens up my world of opportunities. And then I just wanted to close a little bit with what I want to do in 2020. So one of my goals has been for the last year or so is to start this knitting podcast. So this is episode 1, which is exciting and scary. So I can cross that off my bucket list. I want to learn to cross stitch. I have a best friend who cross stitches like crazy. I always thought she was weird. I always thought it was kind of not ever anything I wanted to get into, and now I've been seeing people cross stitch everywhere, and I'm really curious. So maybe I'll learn to cross stitch. I am working on some designs, so hopefully I'll publish some of those. I have a couple that I'm working on, and this, pattern designing is really hard. I was like, oh yeah, you can just figure it out, draw it out, make sure it works, and type it up. Like, it won't take any time at all. That is not how it works. It's hard. I'm taking a little bit of a break. Made me learn to crochet. I used to crochet when I was little, just kind of like the chain blankets. But I see all these, I'm not sure if I'm going to say it right, but amigurumi, I don't know. It's where you can make figures and stuffed animals out of crochet, and it's so adorable. So I'm really curious about that. I want to make the Love Note sweater. I'll try to put a picture in. I want to make the Spellman sweater. That's probably my next sweater. And I've been thinking, so, oh, I also watch Full of Knit. So there's Karen and Susan, I think it is, and they are funny. So their podcast is called Full of Knit. They are hilarious to watch. I love them so much. And they also teach me a lot about knitting. So it's important that I mention them. But what I wanted to say is that they've been knitting hats. I think they've been knitting like a hat every month and sending them away to some charity for chemo so that chemo patients can have hats. And I think that's amazing. So I think that's something I want to do this year is I want to try to knit at least a hat a month and then kind of bulk ship them out. Find me on Instagram at KnittaCass16. You can find me on YouTube at KnittaCass Creates. And I hope you join me again. I ask that if you watch this video that you like and subscribe it and share it. And once I get to 50 followers, I'm going to be doing a really awesome giveaway that you don't want to miss out on. Thank you.